Welcome to the Melrose Unitarian Universalist Church. Our service today is called Lucky to Be Here in the First Place. Good morning. Hello, everyone. I am the Reverend Dr. Suzanne Intriligator. My pronouns are she and her, and it is a good day to be alive. Thank you for coming down here and brightening this place on this lovely, crisp, sunny fall morning. And thank you to the Zoom folks, too. Hello, good morning. There is a lot going on in church these days as we work up to the holiday season. We've got the alternative fair coming in 2 Saturdays, and Carol needs your help with that. So if you've got some time, see Carol. Plus, this coming Tuesday marks the start of our annual Giving Tree Drive. Via our website, you can help families in Boston who are served by the UU Urban Ministry buy gifts and celebrate the winter holidays. Also, coming this week, Barbara Lambiasso is starting up a knitting and crafting group on Wednesday nights in the parlor. All that info is in the midweek update. I urge you to have a look. I want to give a quick shout out to our helpers today. Thank you to ushers Adrienne and Florence, to our greeter Nancy, to our coffee hosts Michael O'Connor and Liz Meyer. Thanks, everybody. Next Sunday, I will be back in the pulpit preaching as per usual, but today we have our monthly guest preacher. And he's special. He's coming to us all the way from San Diego. And here to introduce him is his longtime friend, Kathy Sang, our board member.
Good morning. So Reverend Tom Owen Towle, our guest minister today, and his wife, the Reverend Carolyn Sheets Owen Towle, are very special people in my life, as they introduced me to Unitarian Universalism and have been good friends to me for over 15 years. In my experience, they are the models of what it means to be a UU. They walk the talk every day, and this is what inspired me to join the UU faith. They lead with love and respect in everything they do, and they touch lives in church congregations, homeless shelters, the LGBT community, homes for the elderly, and anywhere the disenfranchised are found. Tom has been a UU minister for over 50 years, and for over 24 of those years, he and Carolyn were co-ministers of First UU Church in San Diego, which is the church that I first joined. Unfortunately, they had already been retired for 10 years, so they weren't my ministers there, but they're my good friends. Under their loving leadership, it grew to a congregation of 600 to 700 members. It was big. Tom is the author of over 20 books on a variety of topics: personal growth, social compassion, conscious aging, and mindful death. I've read several of them in the latter categories to help me through my life journey over the past decade. Tom, something you may not know, is also a wonderful musician. He plays guitar and sings, and I have many of his CDs, including the holiday one, which is about to break out on my player. He also has what I believe is a unique gift for a minister. I certainly didn't see it when we were in a search for Reverend Suzanne. He's a magician, a really good one. You might want to work on that. I don't know that he'll be sharing either of these latter two gifts with us today, but I assure you they are wonderful. Tom and Carolyn, it's hard to speak about one without the other. They're such a tight-knit couple, have touched and transformed so many lives, certainly mine. That is with a heart full of love, admiration, and respect that I have the great pleasure of introducing you to Reverend Tom Owen Towle.
Thank you,
Is
Kathy.
he going to be spotlighted?
Yeah, he's here with us, but he'll be spotlighted later when he leads the prayer and when he preaches. Thank you so much, Kathy. Now it's our moment to greet everyone, and we'll see Tom up here with everyone else. So people here in the room can turn around and wave and say hello and shake hands. People in the Zoom room will be on the screen. Hello. There's Tom. There he is, along with everyone else. Hi, Nyla. Hi, James. Hi, Dan and Mary Beth. Good to see everybody. Good morning. Tom, our guest preacher today, has requested that we start out our service a little differently from usual, so I will call us to worship with a unison reading from our hymnal. That means we'll read it together, if you care to join in. The words are here on the screen, or you can turn to number 417 in the gray hymnal. The author is Reverend Barbara Peskin. Please join with me. For the beauty of the earth, this spinning blue-green ball, yes. Gaia, mother of everything, we walk gently across your back to come together again in this place, to remember how we can live, to remember who we are, to create how we will be. Gaia, our home, the lap in which we live, welcome us. Amen. And now together, we light the living symbol of our faith, the flaming chalice. Here to light it for us is longtime member and member of our anti-racism team this year, Beth Yeargrau. Thank you, Beth. She will also be leading us in our covenant.
I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit, and join me in the words of our covenant, which you can see on the screen. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls grow into harmony with the divine. This is our great covenant, one with another and with our God.
Thank you, Beth. Oh, please remain standing, if you would, and join please in our opening hymn, which is number 349 in the gray hymnal, and the words will appear on the screen. Thank you for leading us, choir. Seated. This week we have a special children's story which was selected and will be presented by our anti-racism team. I welcome forward Ann Easterbrooks, a member of our anti-racism team, to tell the story of Thanksgiving from an Indigenous perspective.
Our story today is called Keepin' 'em Up, Weochman's Thanksgiving Story. It's written by Danielle Greendeer, Anthony Perry, and Alexis Bunton, and it was illustrated by Gary Meaches Sr. Several words in the story are in Wampanoag, a language used by the Wampanoag people in the past and today. So maybe I'm going to teach you 3 of these words. One is called Keepin' 'em Up, and that means the time of harvest. You want to say that with me? Keepin' 'em up. And there's another one, Weochman. That means corn. Weochman. And Nukamus means grandmother. Okay, you got that? All right. Can you tell us a story? Quill asked. How about the time Weochman, the spirit of corn, asked our Wampanoag ancestors to help the pilgrims? Nukamus replied. The first Thanksgiving? Maple asked. Some people call it that, Newcomus said. We call it Keepanamuk, the time of harvest. Here's what really happened. 2 winters had passed since many of the first peoples who cared for Weochaman passed on to the spirit world. Those who were not taken by sickness found new homes to ease their heavy hearts and rebuild their lives. Weochaman feared this winter would be her last, and she called upon Fox to help. Fox looked up at Weochaman. Should we trust these newcomers, he asked. Stay close and watch what they do, Weochaman told Fox. Fall turned to winter. Weochaman and the other plants fell asleep. Fox watched the newcomers come ashore. He watched as they made their way into the forest. He watched them enter an abandoned wetu. He watched them take a cooking pot and a basket of Weochaman's seeds. Don't take us away, the seeds cried. We are waiting for the first peoples to come back in the spring to prepare our beds. We must grow first. But the newcomers could not hear the seeds. Their ears did not know the voices of the land. Fox watched the newcomers build homes on top of an empty village. He watched as they searched for food, but they could never find enough to eat. Many of the newcomers lost mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters during the long, cold winter. The first peoples watched as well. News traveled fast among the nearby tribes that newcomers had arrived, and nobody was sure what to make of them. For many years, others had traveled across the sea to hunt, fish, and to trade, and some of them were friendly, but some were not. These new people seemed different. They were here to stay. Winter turned into spring. The sun warmed the earth. The newcomers continued their search for food. Weochaman awoke from her long slumber and thanked the Creator for another season. She and her sisters, Beans and Squash, pushed through the ground and reached toward the sky. Fox returned to share what he had seen. The newcomers are hungry, Fox told the 3 sisters. They took Weochaman's seeds, but they don't know how to help them grow. Other animals came to hear what Fox had to say. We should help, Weochaman said. I agree, Beans said. Our home is their home now. I think we should too, said Squash. People help us grow. We must help, said Deer. We agreed to feed the people. In return, they care for the home we share. I wouldn't, said Fox. The newcomers don't know our world. Sometimes new people can seem scary, Rabbit said. The Creator tells us to help all living things. This is how the world works. Yes, Duck and Turkey agreed. It's settled, said Weochaman. We will send the first peoples to help the newcomers. Over the next few nights, Weochaman sent dreams to the first peoples with a message. Bring me and my sisters to the newcomers. They are hungry and they need help. The first peoples listened. Their leader, Usamiquin, visited the newcomers. He could see that they wanted peace. Usamiquin introduced the newcomers to Tisquantum, and spring turned into summer. Tisquantum showed the newcomers how to raise Weochaman and her sisters Beans and Squash. He taught the newcomers how to feed fish and seaweed to Weochaman to help her grow. And soon, Weochaman's seeds pushed through the earth and climbed toward the sky. Beans wrapped around Weochaman's strong stalks. Squash stretched her vines across the ground, keeping Weochaman's bed cool and moist. And summer turned to fall. Weochaman brimmed with food, and so did beans and squash. Weochaman smiled as the newcomers thanked Tisquantum and the First Peoples for their help. Keepanamuk, the time of harvest had come. The newcomers prepared a feast to celebrate the first year in their new home. They fired muskets to celebrate. Boom, boom, boom. Wisamiquin, warriors, and other First Peoples arrived, and they all feasted for 3 days. That meal changed our lives and theirs forever. Many Americans call it a day of Thanksgiving. Many of our people call it a day of mourning. That's different from what we learned in school, said Maple. It was Weochaman and the other beings of the land, sea, and sky who made the newcomers' first harvest possible? That's right, newcomers said. And this is why we pray before we eat. Thank you for listening, and the children may now leave for your class.
Thank you, Anne. Every Sunday in the center of our worship service, we share a time of quiet contemplation, a moment for each of us to relax and to connect with the holy, however it is we each understand the holy. Let's begin by getting in touch with our bodies, feeling our feet on the floor, relaxing into our seats. Let's breathe in and out together. To begin our meditation time, we'll join in our centering song, then we'll sit for a few minutes of shared silence, then we'll speak to one another of our sorrows and our joys, and then our guest preacher, Reverend Owen Towle, will lead us in prayer. Our worship themes for November are change and the third UUA principle, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. This month, we'll be thinking about change in our lives, in our world, in our community, and about how adapting to these changes can spark spiritual growth. Our centering song for the month is Turn, Turn, Turn by the Unitarian Universalist songwriter Pete Seeger, and of course, from the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible. Lyrics will appear on the screen, and our music director, Tom, and the choir will lead us in singing. Join in as you like, and let the song gently guide you into our time of quiet.
A Let us join together in words of prayer and meditation. O eternal Spirit of life and love and liberation.
Hey, Tom?
Yeah, now?
Not yet, thanks.
Not yet. Okay, sorry.
We do 2 minutes of silence, then we do joys and sorrows, then we do the
Okay,
prayer.
got it.
I'll call on you. Just give us one more minute of quiet, and we'll do our joys and sorrows, and then Tom will have our. It is our practice here every Sunday to share with one another our sorrows and our joys, the personal milestones of our lives. People on Zoom are invited to go ahead and type a sorrow that you want to share today into the chat room. We start with sorrows and we follow up with joys. So right now we're looking at sorrows. If anyone in the room has a sorrow they'd like to share, please come forward now. Speak at the microphone so everyone can hear and see you. Chuck.
I meant to light this last week, but maybe today on Melrose Kindness Day, it's appropriate even more so. This is a candle of sorrow and remembrance for beloved Boston radio and music personality Dick Pleasance, who passed away a couple of weeks ago. Dick, through his appreciation and support, boosted our local music scene and the careers of countless musicians in the area. He also founded Summer Acoustic Music Week in 1996. And when I was invited to SAMW more than 10 years ago by Bill McQuaid, Bill introduced me to Dick, and I look back on that as a life-changing experience, and it has been for me over the years. And I can only consider multiplying that by hundreds, thousands, I don't know. The impact of Dick Pleasance as a person was profound and very wide-reaching.
That was Chuck Foley remembering Dick Pleasance. Kathy?
I just want us to hold the people of Colorado, especially in the LGBTQ community, in our hearts and prayers for the terrible, terrible event of yesterday. Especially, I believe today is International Transgender Day. So it's just a terrible, terrible, violent act that we unfortunately still have to live with in our lives.
Martha Borkin, and this candle is sorrow for my dear friend Margaret, who is very sick and is dying from her multiple myeloma cancer.
Martha's friend Margaret. Cheryl.
Hi, I'm Cheryl, and I probably should have done this last week, but I just couldn't do it emotionally. We had some stuff happen at home last week, and it's still kind of hitting this week, and just hoping that things get better really soon, though they're already starting to work better right now.
Thank you, Cheryl. While Adrienne goes ahead and lights one candle, to symbolize the sorrows that we have shared. Let's take a moment to hold all the sorrows, both spoken and unspoken, in our hearts this morning. Let us remember to reach out to one another with compassion and kindness, letting one another know how much we care. Let us do what we can do to uphold our community and to share love and joy in the world. Now I ask anyone who has a joy to share to go ahead and come forward. People in the room, people on Zoom, you can type into the chat box and I will read them at the end. Come forward. Go ahead, Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm happy to say that last week, Tuesday, around noon, I finished 4 weeks and 2 days of jury service. It was a fascinating experience, but I'm glad it's over. And also, I was invited this year to be a part of the Fullercraft holiday market, so that was a real honor.
Hi, my name's Brian. I've got a candle of hope, really. My mother has dementia, and so I went to a Alzheimer's support group this week, and it was just really, really very inspiring. And if there's anyone out there who's on the fence about going to any sort of support group, I think I hardly recommend it. It's such a relief.
So, small announcement from my daughter. She no longer wants to be Anastasia. She would rather be Alex. And we kind of played with it a little bit on Facebook the other day, and the outpouring of support was awesome. Even her aunt, who in Connecticut, reached out and said, am I supposed to now use this name instead of that name? And I said yes. And she said, okay, thank you. I will do that. And that was something that Alex was very nervous about. So, and pronouns are whatever pronoun she is feeling in that moment.
Congratulations to Alex.
As many of you know, we've been contemplating a move, and we finally made it. We're in our new condo in Malden after many, many years. And my mother is there and is reasonably okay with the change after she left her house of 61 years. I really, really am grateful. Sorry for help in packing from Corey. And Mary Delahanty came and spent the day with my mother on the day we moved. Thank you very much.
This is a candle of joy for my son Ian, who many of you used to know as Molly, who is becoming a happier person as Ian, and is in a play at the Wakefield High School of Clue, and he is Professor Plum. He's rather pleased.
Congratulations to Ian.
This summer, my son David got married to Emily, and Emily her family lives in Medford, and our family was wonderfully expanded as it was for our daughter when she married her Israeli husband. But this Thanksgiving, Emily's parents are joining us at the table, and I've always loved the phrase and there's always room at the table. So we are really welcoming having them join us.
Wonderful. And we have one joy shared from our Zoom room. This comes from Nita Penfold. Great joy for the birth of our second great-grandchild. He's named Jack, born last Thursday to our granddaughter Morgan in St. Louis. We are excited to be meeting him at Christmas. Adrian, please light a candle. Let's hold all of these joys, both spoken and unspoken, in our hearts for just a moment. Letting that joy come into our hearts and fill us too. Thank you to all who shared. You remind us of the joy of being alive and our great gratitude for all of the blessings in our lives. And now, Reverend Tom Owen Towle, would you please lead us in prayer?
Eternal Spirit of life and love and liberation, our prayer is simple. Be our companion. We cannot manage this challenge called life alone. We need support and guidance. Comfort us. Comfort particularly those who are suffering internationally, interpersonally, and internally. Tragedy and devastation. Bring comfort to them. And also challenge us, those who are struggling, to be motivated, to contribute, to make a difference. Challenge us. And let there be peace and unrest and peace in our lives. Sufficient peace to bring us serenity and calm, but enough unrest to keep us morally awake and spiritually on our toes. Peace and unrest and peace. Shalom, salam, ashe, namaste, blessed be, and amen.
And now it's time for our offertory music. Tom? Other Tom?
This church is a self-supporting organization funded by your generous annual pledge. You may also contribute to our weekly collection plate, which we split every month with a deserving cause. Folks on Zoom can donate either way using the orange button at the top right corner of our homepage at melroseuu.org. For the month of November, in honor of Thanksgiving, our giving partner is Melrose-based The Food Drive. This organization seeks to connect the 1 million tons of food that goes to waste each year in Massachusetts with the 1 million people in our state who are food insecure. Half our collection this month goes to the Food Drive. Our anthem for this morning is called Make Me an Instrument. The music is by the composer Mary MacDonald, and the text is often referred to as the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. However, he was not the author. A little research shows that the author is anonymous and that this prayer first appeared on mass cards in the Catholic Church in the US during the period of the First World War. Regardless of who wrote it, the sentiment is appropriate for these strife-filled times in which we are living. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy.
Instrument of thy peace.
I would invite us to read our responsive reading. It's selection number 512 in our hymnal, composed by former president of the UUA, O. Eugene Pickett. For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, fill us with awe and challenge our imaginations. For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons. For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements. For our human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression. For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared. For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom. For human liberty and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose. I want to thank Reverend Suzanne for warmly welcoming me to our pulpit. I look forward to returning in January. And Bill, for all the tech support, thank you, Bill. And for the musical team, and particularly to Kathy Sang, our dear friend from San Diego, for the initial invitation and the deeply heartfelt introduction. And my 54 years of ministry, I'm not sure I've ever received a warmer more authentic introduction. Thank you, Kathy. And to all of you Melrosians, either on Zoom or in your sanctuary, you could be elsewhere, but you're here this morning. Thank you for joining me in worship. Thanksgiving is one of our greatest American holidays because it honors not military prowess, but spiritual freedom. It celebrates kinship with the earth rather than victory over a human foe. It's simply more spiritual than patriotic. In a Pogo episode, Churchy LaFemme sits wailing in the back of the rowboat after seeing a newspaper headline, "Sun will burn out in 3 billion years, killing all life." And Churchy cries, "Woe is me. I'm too young to die." And Porky reprimands him, saying, "Shut up. You're lucky to be here in the first place." And so we are lucky to be here in the first place. You know the mathematical odds of our being born are incredible. Something like 1 in 700 trillion. No two snowflakes are alike. No two humans are the same either. Even identical twins differ. It's truly a marvel that each of us, irrepeatables, walks the earth at this very moment in time. In The Cat's Cradle, a fanciful science fiction novel, Kurt Vonnegut, whose family, by the way, were founding pillars of our Indianapolis Unitarian congregation, Vonnegut conveys the same attitude through the Bocanist death ritual. The Bocanists, you see, serve God by lying down on the floor, raising their legs, and massaging each other's feet, soul to soul, while communing with God. And when one of the old Bocanists is about to die, she recites the prayer, "God made mud. I was some of the mud that got to suit up and look around. What memories for mud to have. I loved everything I saw. Lucky me. Lucky mud." None of us asked to be born. There's no special merit involved with our rivals, and never forget we didn't earn the privilege of life. We were lucky. Whether we look at existence scientifically or religiously or both, it's an unspeakable miracle, a wonder, a gift of grace. Every morning I get up, I try to take a deep breath and shout forth, "Wow, it's good to be alive. I'm downright lucky to be here. I'm taking nothing for granted. I'm going full bore today." Well, to be honest, that as I'm entering my 82nd year, I don't always spring out of bed upon waking. I sometimes crawl or stumble out, usually straightway to the bathroom, but nonetheless, thankful for the gift of yet another unearned 24 hours. And so I want to tell you the story of how gratitude and I first joined forces. It was a clumsy start. My parents were worried about me as a toddler because I didn't seem willing or able to muster detectable words until about 5 or so. Now, fortunately, I was suffering from no psychophysical malaise of any consequence. I was just extraordinarily withdrawn. Perhaps like the biblical Mary, I was pondering things in my heart. Who knows? Yet once I started to talk, albeit late, I emerged in sentences, and look at me now. Words are my trade. Well, when I first started to talk, I remember my mom pulling me aside and saying, Tommy, we're not quite sure how many words you're going to be able to produce in the days ahead. So before you get going, I have a few tips to offer you. Son, there exist words that heal and words that hurt. And I want you to major in the first kind, the healing ones. Secondly, my sweetheart, there are 5 phrases special to me that I hope will be liberally sprinkled throughout the course of your life. They aren't complicated or fancy. They don't belong to scholars or gurus or clergy. They belong to everyone. They're words, son, that mend, that soothe, that give life. And so I pass them on for your safe keeping and caring use. And whenever you're not sure what to say, either be quiet or offer one of the following simple phrases. Thank you. I love you. How are you? I'm sorry. Tell me more. Mom went on. Now, of course, she said, there are going to be inappropriate times to use any of these words. But almost universally, Tommy, these 5 phrases express gratitude, respect, and love, the most important freight any language can ever carry. But of all 5 phrases Mom passed on to me, her clear favorite was, thank you, which she quickly added, came with 2 conditions. First, if you never share your gratitude, son, it won't reach its destination. Plus, if you don't offer thanks precisely when you feel it, you won't likely get around to doing it later. The moment will pass. So gratitude is ground floor, Tommy. It's life's spiritual engine. All the big virtues are motored by gratitude. Everything of worth flows from a thankful heart. That, my friends, was the main mini lecture of my entire growing up. And I've spent the rest of my years trying to live up to it. And so my spiritual ken at Melrose, Massachusetts, while it's sitting full in my heart, I want to thank you for inviting me into your midst this morning. But folks, you and I know the truth is that human gratitude is a mature human emotion and not easy to come by. I mean, just revisit the real story of Thanksgiving Day, which, by the way, is worth doing when we aren't bloated with food and relatives. The real story is filled with mixed motives and results, just like our lives. We tend to romanticize our holy days. We idealize the setting, the characters, and the virtues of the first Thanksgiving, because among other reasons, we're fearful of ever sullying our American image if we confronted the muddied facts. But on the contrary, I've grown to find that I'm more inspired when acknowledging that the Pilgrims were roughly as brave and beastly as humans of most eras. Take a good look at them. a motley handful of families who defied all good sense in seeking to settle a wilderness in winter and to plant seeds of democracy in the new world. The Pilgrims came to build a way of life and community on your turf in our country that would furnish, as John Winthrop said, a light unto the nations, a light unto the nations. But it was tougher than anyone could have ever imagined. I mean, in that first winter at Plymouth, over half of them died of starvation and exposure, including many children. And they had to wonder whether the trek was really worth it after such difficulties and devastation. And yet William Bradford wrote in his simple journal, they knew they were pilgrims, and they summoned answerable courages. What a marvelous phrasing of the central response to life. They knew they were pilgrims, and they summoned answerable courages. We too are pilgrims, even if most of our journeys require not passage across actual oceans, but the spanning of interior or relational gulfs. And in these 21st century times of hardship and uncertainty and oppression happening even as I speak, you and I are constantly pressed into summoning answerable courages for the living of our days, aren't we? And answerable means possible. It denotes responsibility, the ability to respond. It refers to the fact that the Pilgrims simply did what they had to do to survive the winter and settle the new land. I pay close attention to that kind of courage because it's basically the same kind you and I are asked as Unitarian Universalists to summon for our daily adventures as free-thinking mystics with hands. I mean, have you gazed recently at some of the forgotten twists and turns of the original Thanksgiving? The first notable irony is that the Pilgrims came to America not really because of gratitude, but because of ingratitude. They were dissatisfied with the conditions of life in their homeland. They were gravely discontented, and discontent marks the human spirit breaking out of the prison houses of the past. It's the human spirit doing what the spirit was made for, bursting forth with new and unfettered energy. So let's never underestimate the role of ingratitude in human change. If the Pilgrims had only been a lot of thankful sentimentalists, they wouldn't have left home in the first place. So 3 cheers for discontent and dissent and even disgust. For without these motivators, transformation rarely occurs. In fact, let's face it, we stay stuck. And so where's the discontent in your personal journey and throughout our American landscape? And what are you and I, pilgrims, doing about it? Here's another piece of Thanksgiving ambiguity. The Pilgrims intended a new start in the moral history of the world, yet their intentions were both noble and ignoble. They pursued religious freedom, all right, but they came to America to worship in their own way, to make other people do the same. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad the Pilgrims landed. I'm pleased that their land has become my land, but That same landing of the Pilgrims also marks stealing territory from the Native Americans, the destruction of their religion and way of life, centuries of agony and poverty and loss and death for the natives already dwelling here. So our gladness on this day must always be tempered by a disturbing sadness. Friends, not only was the winter hard and harsh for our early immigrants, but harsh and hard, devastating upon the Native Americans. And so the first Thanksgiving was a tainted one. But it's not much different today. Our Thanksgiving celebrations are often just as checkered. They're filled with food and famine, which I remember tomorrow as I go to sing at the homeless shelter. Family and loneliness, as my friends at the shelter go forth to walk the streets and live on the streets of San Diego. Compassion and bigotry, greed and gratitude, all in ample measure, and sometimes intermingled under the same roof. Our contemporary Thanksgivings aren't any more romantic than those of our Pilgrim forebears when we dare to scrutinize them. But twisted and tormented as our lives may be personally and interpersonally and globally, we can and must dare to share lives of thanksgiving. We're a life-affirming religion. As Unitarian Universalists, we claim that in spite of our brokenness, in spite of our cowardice, we still possess, as long as we're breathing, the capacity to be thankful for our lives and to share the bounty of earth with fellow travelers. For in the final analysis, Thanksgiving isn't really a holiday. It isn't even a season. It isn't a fair or foul weather response. It's a chosen way of being in the universe. It's a way of starting the day. It's a way of ending the day. It's a way of living all the moments in between. Once we stop taking things for granted, our own body becomes one of the most surprising things of all, doesn't it? My body and your body produce and destroy 15 million red blood cells every second. 15 million, that's twice the census figure of New York City. And if the blood vessels in my body and your body lined up end to end, they would reach around the world, yet our heart needs only 1 minute to pump our blood through this filigree network and back again. And it's been doing so minute by minute, day by day, for all our moments on earth, pumping away at 100,000 heartbeats every 24 hours. I have no idea how it works. I'm simply brimming with curiosity and surprise and joy and gratitude. Thank you, body. Thank you. Oh, the marvels that life delivers. Marvels we humans can neither fathom nor earn. Marvels we can only soak in, be still, wordless, grateful. And so everybody always assumes that the Pilgrims were thankful for having survived. It seems to me that they were able to survive because they were thankful. After all, why should they have given thanks? After so much grief and loss, suffering and death, and why give thanks? After a hard winter's endurance by dint of their own human effort. If anything, they probably should have held a gathering of human shared commiseration for what they had been through and mutual self-congratulation for what they had accomplished, That would have been more logical, more fitting. But no, they were thankful because they believed that survival isn't possible and life isn't really livable without being grateful. And so I hope it's abundantly clear that there exist times to be ungrateful, times to moan and lament loud and strong. Remember, that's how the pilgrims got here, driven by complaint. But such complaints, while necessary outbursts, ought never undermine our bone deep gratitude for being alive. Whether arguing or rejoicing, whether protesting or serving, the thankful person remains thankful. The thankful person remains thankful. Whether laughing or crying, fearful or in pain, the thankful person remains thankful. Thanksgiving isn't a passing state. It's not an annual feast. It's a perpetual condition of the religious pilgrim. We're lucky to be here in the first place. Lucky me, lucky you, lucky mud.
Thank you so much, Reverend Tom. Please stand in body and in spirit, and let us join in our closing hymn, Come Ye Thankful People Come, which is, number 68, thank you, in the gray hymnal. Thank you. Please remain standing and join me, please, in our chalice extinguishing words, which are on the screen. Be extinguished the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you. Please be seated. Our worship has ended. Thank you so much for joining with us in worship today. And people in the Zoom room, feel free to stay there. Reverend Tom is going to stay, and you might have a chat with him or get to know him a little bit better. Kathy Sang and I are going to be in the parlor, and we can continue our next steps discussion from last week if anyone would like to join us there. Also, we have coffee and snacks in our coffee hour in Parish Hall, just the other side, right after Tom's postlude. Thank you very much again for worshiping with us today. Happy Thanksgiving.